Alright, so while it's raining outside, and it's going to be raining for the next week, perfect time to get some stuff done here. So in the last video, we were able to set the transfer case, put a new drive shaft in, paint the engine, install the cab. We also did some work for the oil pan, switching that around 180 degrees so that it's a rear sump instead of a front sump. So in the last video, we also discovered that the spring hanger that I ordered for the rear mount on the passenger side was not going to work. So we have the other 3 spring hangers, but we still need one right there. So this one from the picture looked like it would work because it's hanging outside of the frame. The frame sits in here and it looks like it's perfect because it's just outside the frame. But when you put it up here, man, that's heavy. The bolt holes don't line up, and that's not such a problem, but the problem is this right hand side is like right here. That bolt needs to go right there, and there's a motor mount right there. We can't do that. Plus we need to have that bolt in there, and this is cast, and that little gusset right there is right where that motor mount bolt is. So no matter what we do, we can't make this work. So this is $400. I'm going to try to return it. But what we can do before we return it is copy the design, because I'm getting sick of making these hangers. So the quicker I can make one, I can get it out of my hair and be done. So what I've come up with is a bushing almost identical to the one that's in there, and a pipe. This is DOM pipe, drawn over mandrel. The problem is they're the exact same size. So I need to either take some material off the outside of this, or I need to take some material from the inside of this. I'm thinking let's try this first with the brake hone, see if we can get it reasonably close. What I don't want to do is press this in here and then try to weld this all up afterwards, because there's rubber inside of here. So I want to keep this out of the equation until this is all welded up, and then I'll press this into here. But the first thing we got to do is take a few thou off the inside of this or the outside of this. So let's see what we can do. I don't have a machine shop, so we got to do it a different way. I don't have any cutting oil at the moment, so I gotta make do. I'm sure there's better stuff out there to use, but Yeah, I think that'll go right in now. I clean this off like this so that I can mark it better, because these markers just don't like oil. They don't like rust either. Plus it doesn't hurt anything because I'm going to be welding things too, so not having contaminated welds also plays a factor too. 8 inches. By 6 inches. So I need to come an inch up from here. So I'm going to start out with 2 1/2-inch plates. Alright, so just to try everything out before I fully weld that new spring hanger, I got the new front spring hanger here, and I already have the rear one. So let's set this side, and then the other side we have the front already ready, so we'll set that, and then on the rear passenger side we'll test out what I just welded up. It's just tack welded. had to get the last little bit with the press, but it's in now. The nice thing about this is that I can replace this down the road if it ever wears out. So that's what I've come up with, and then on the back I got that, and that is so that I have support underneath, as well as I still got to drill these 2 holes here too. So that's 5 bolts altogether, 5/8 bolts. So not bad for some scrap laying around versus the old one, which was like $400. But it wasn't about the money, it was just about the fact that I couldn't get one to work. I would have gladly paid $400 just to get one that worked. But I've tested this out many times, and this will definitely work, so now I just got to paint it up. And as far as this one goes, I'm still going to put the same thing. I'm going to go underneath the frame here and then put some gussets going down. And this one I can go pretty deep with the gussets. You know, I can go down a lot more. Because this side is fully supported by this. You know, that can't go in and out. But this side can flex a little bit, which it's 3/8, so it's not going to flex, but just in case, and to add more support vertically, I'm going to put the same thing. Plate on the bottom with some gussets going back down in. And by the way, there was a lot of you concerned about these connectors getting painted. We took every one of these connectors out. There was only very, very little droplets on the end of each connector. They weren't on the length of it, but we still cleaned them off anyways. We cleaned all of them off. 100% guarantee it wasn't a problem. I didn't spray that much inside of there. I know it was stupid. I should have just put some rags in there or something, but just to ease you guys' mind, because I know that was a big concern in the last video. All right, so things are getting really crazy with this truck. You guys have seen me struggle with the front axle for a while now. Several videos, I struggled with several different things on that front axle. Well, things just got a lot worse. So a few videos back, I had somebody comment and say, did you check the direction of spin between the axle and the transfer case? And I didn't really think anything of it. But then another person commented on the last video, and I don't know if it was the same person or not, but it got me thinking maybe I should check. So I checked, and sure enough, this axle spins backwards from what normally an axle would spin. So on the rear, the axle spins, if you're looking at it from the back, the axle spins counterclockwise. So I checked the front, and the axle in the front spins clockwise to go forward. So I checked the transfer case, and all the shafts spin the same way, which can only mean one thing. That axle is spinning backwards, and this transfer case doesn't account for that. So I guess what happens is when you get this Meritor axle, you're supposed to get the Meritor transfer case that goes with it, which spins the front shaft backwards from what it normally spins. As far as I know, no other transfer case does that except for the MTC 42 series, which is like 4210, 4208, 4213. They all spin backwards on the front shaft only. So there's many different ways I could tackle this. I've spent the last 2 days trying to figure this out. What's the most efficient thing that I can do here? Option number one, I can get rid of that transfer case, get a Meritor transfer case, which is, I'm looking at $3,000 for one that is pretty much a core and needs to be rebuilt, or probably needs to be rebuilt. Or I could spend $8,000 and get one that's like good, or I could spend like $13,000 to get one that's remanufactured. And that leaves me with still needing to re-gear the front axle because it's the wrong ratio. That's another $4,000 to $5,000 to do that. So that's a big money option right there. The other option was to buy, I found International 4800, and that truck pretty much is always four-wheel drive. And that comes with the Fabco SDA 1400 axle, which I believe is what this axle is here. So then it got me thinking, well, this has got Bud style studs. So if you don't know what that is, that's basically the rim centers itself with the studs. Bud is like a brand name, but it's basically lug centric. And on the left side, it turns backwards, counterclockwise to tighten. And on the right side, it does the opposite. And these are the big 1.125" studs here. So I thought that would be a problem, but I actually found that you can buy rims for this very easily, very cheap. It's the same as any other rims. It's pretty much a standard thing. So that's good. But the one thing about this axle is I don't know what exactly this axle is. I'm assuming it's an SDA 1400, but I don't know for sure. The tag is gone. I called the only parts company that makes parts for or it doesn't make them, but they actually sell them still. They source them somehow. They said that there is definitely a stamp behind where the plate would go. Do you guys see any stamp there? There's definitely no stamped letters or numbers there whatsoever. The guy insisted that there was absolutely 100% a stamp behind there, and I'm telling him, listen, there is not a stamp behind there. It's not there. So I have no idea what exactly this axle is. It could be one of a few different ones. I'm pretty sure it's the 1400, but I don't know for sure. So I went to look up parts for this, thinking that it was the 1400, to just get a couple parts for the brakes and stuff. And the guy told me, without the serial number, I cannot get you parts. Period. Nothing I can do about it. So I was like, well, can I just order parts for what I think it is? And then if they're not the right parts, I can just get more parts? And he's like, nope, I cannot look up the parts whatsoever without the serial number. So I'm like, okay, well, can I just buy the parts for all the axles and just see which one works? And I'm not even interested in returning whatever doesn't work. I just want to get whatever parts I can and see what works. And he's like, listen, I can't give you any parts without a serial number, period. There's nothing I can do for you. And so that was the end of that. Yeah, so that got me thinking, well, maybe I need to find another axle that's similar to this, because this is the axle that I think goes on most international trucks, the older style trucks, you know, the more boxy style. So then I got looking online and I found a 4800 truck with a crane on it for $4,000. It's in New Hampshire. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll just go down there and get that truck and just take all the parts off of it that I need. That way I know it's the SDA 1400 because I looked it up by the VIN number. And I know I have all the spring hangers and all the mounts and everything to do with it would be what I need. But then I got looking, the spring hangers are totally different. They don't fit in the same spot on the frame that this truck does. So I'd have to drill totally different new holes right next to the holes that are already in here. It's like 4 holes and they're spaced, like, in other words, if I was to do it, I'd be putting holes right next to these holes, and I do not like that idea. And then you keep going down the rabbit hole, find out that the spring set for that truck is 3 inches and it's stacked like 6 or 8 springs tall. So now you got to get the springs and put them in this. You got to get the spring mounts, the springs. Then that truck also has a dual steering box. So they have a master steering box over there and a slave steering box over here. So now you got to either eliminate the slave and hope that the master is going to be good, which I think it will be. But then the pitman arm for this steering box is completely different. Wrong angle, wrong length. So then you're like, okay, maybe I could take the steering box off of the other truck and put it on this one. But then the mounting holes don't line up. And that steering box puts a lot of pressure on this frame. And then you're like, well, if I put that steering box on, what's the shaft that goes to it gonna be like? And on it goes. I've spent this entire week pretty much doing nothing. I have not accomplished hardly anything. So at this point, I am actually leaning back more towards getting the $3,000 transfer case that I need, hoping that I can salvage it and rebuild it, taking this one out of here, putting that one in after I fully check it and maybe rebuild it. Then I gotta get a new drive shaft because that's not gonna work. The yoke on this end is not gonna work, so maybe they can cut that off and put a new yoke on. Maybe it won't cost near as much as having this shaft made, but it's still gonna cost something. And then maybe I can lift the cab up and mount that transfer case here, because obviously it's different mounts. But you know what? I'm at the point right now where that's why I picked up the camera, because I'm ready to tell you guys that I am moving on for a little while. I'm gonna go do something else because I'm losing my mind over this. So I got another project that I'm going to be doing, and I'm going to have fun for a little while, and we'll come back to this. And in the meantime, I'm leaning towards getting that other transfer case, so let's see what happens with that, and I'll check back in with you guys soon. So that's the way it's going to sit right there. I got about 3.5 inches of travel. So hopefully that's enough. If not, we'll have to raise it up another inch. I do have an inch block that I could put in here. I just didn't want to have it in there unless we really needed it. But that can all be changed out in 20 minutes later on down the road. Right now, let's get the rest of this thing together. You know, this thing's sitting pretty level right now. I think by putting airbag suspension on the back, that's probably all I really need. Raise it up maybe 2 inches with the airbag suspension. That's probably all I need. I don't think I really need to get into putting spacers and blocks and stuff in there. All right, well, I was gonna have fun doing some dirt work and stuff, but I started doing it and then the weather got really bad. It started raining and snowing. So I gotta go back to this. So let's see what we can do to keep going on this. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna keep that axle on the front. I don't know for sure, but I think the plan right now is to just get a new transfer case. So let's leave that axle alone. Well, let's finish it up first so it's fully set, and then we can move on from there. And I'm not gonna touch a transfer case until I get another one, if I go that route. So basically, effectively, we've raised the front of this truck up by about 4 inches. So the shock used to mount up here, and then down here, the bottom plate, the very bottom plate that goes on the axle, it is the first thing that the leaf spring touches. That had a little loop in it that was meant to accept the shock. So now we don't have that anymore. So we have to fabricate something to accept the shock. And you can see that it needs to come out a little bit first and then go up, because this is out like 3 inches from the frame. So we're gonna have to have a loop like right here. And then on the other side, it's gonna be different because the leaf spring is totally outside of the frame. So we'll have to come up with something different here. I'm thinking maybe 3/8. I'll drill a hole through it first because it's just gonna be a small little piece that I weld on. I think that works. I don't know. Probably don't have to really take off much on this, because as it's swinging, it's going to come out further like this. I think the next most important thing is going to be mounting this steering box and figuring out the drag link and the pitman arm, making sure everything works with that. And then once I figured everything out, that's kind of the hard stuff, then I can move over to here and make the shock mount for here. Wow. How clear is it? Not by much though. Okay. You know, that wheel's turned pretty good right now. I think these axles turn a little bit sharper than the stock axle, the non-drive axle. And from what I'm seeing, the flat spot on this matches up with the flat spot on that, and the steering wheel is centered. I kept it centered. You don't want to mess that up. When you take apart, when you take out the shaft from there, you want to make sure that the steering wheel stays centered. And I taped it up so that it can't move. And the reason you want to do that is because there's that clock spring in there. And if you go one revolution too many on that clock spring, you'll break it. And then you got to take the whole thing apart and redo everything. Plus, I'm pretty sure there's an airbag in that steering wheel too. And there's the wires to it. You don't want to mess with those wires if you go around too many times and those wires get pinched or something. But the main thing is the clock spring. But it looks like when I had this centered, the flat spot on that met up with the flat spot on that shaft right there. That shaft right there. So, fingers crossed, it looks like I don't really have to do much here. I thought I was going to have to either extend or shrink that drag link right there. But, looks like we may get lucky. Maybe it was a good choice to keep this axle on here. Alright, so I'm going to do something which I think is going to be very controversial in the comment section. There's only going to be 3 opinions about this, and we'll get into that in a little bit. I'm going to try, instead of getting that transfer case, I'm going to try taking that differential out, turning it upside down, putting it back in. I know that sounds crazy. I thought it was really crazy at first when I heard it, but apparently people do it sometimes with these rock crawler trucks because they put the steering axle in the back, or they have a reverse rotation transfer case or reverse rotation engine, or whatever the case may be. I have no idea if it's going to work in this application. It looks like the front of this diff is kind of symmetrical, so it looks like it should work. Like nothing should interfere with the front here. Sometimes people have to like cut out part of the pumpkin and patch it back in, but this is cast, so we can't really do that. So there's only going to be 3 opinions about this. There's going to be people screaming at the screen, you can't do that, that's not going to work. It'll be in reverse and you're going to be on the wrong side of the gear, which is meant for coasting, not thrust. Then there's going to be people screaming at the screen saying, yeah, you can do that, that's definitely fine. And then there's going to be 90% of you that are going to say, I am so curious, but I have no idea. I'm with the 90% of you. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Let's put it this way. This ring and pinion in here has to come out because I have to change the ratio. So it can be my guinea pig. I suppose I could burn out some bearings and other stuff, but when I go to replace the ring and pinion, I don't really want to do that job myself. I can do 95% of the work on this truck, but putting in a ring and pinion, I wanted somebody else to do that. Now, if I could find a whole half to put in there, that'd be great, and I would do that, but I can't find that. So I don't think we have much to lose, except for time. And yeah, I know I'm going to go through all this, and then I got to go through all of it again to do the ring and pinion. I'll probably just bring the axle in and have it done at the shop, at the transmission shop, which will be doing the ring and pinion on this. But here's my reason for why I think this will work. I'm pretty sure. Because when you're putting thrust on the flat part of the gear, that's meant for thrust. And if you reverse it, now that's meant for coasting instead of the thrust. But hear me out. I'm only going to be coasting with this. It's never going to have any thrust unless I'm in 4-wheel drive and I'll be going like 5 miles an hour to get out of a ditch or something. I'm not going to drive around at 40 miles an hour with 4-wheel drive on. First of all, I'm not going to be in that kind of weather. I'm not going to really even be in the snow with this because I don't want salt all over this vehicle. So the only time I'm going to get stuck is probably in the mud. And even then, I'll have a winch. This is only for emergencies only. Very seldom emergencies. Probably never have to use it. So for 99.99% of the time, the gears are only going to see coasting. So if it physically fits and turns around in there, then we should be good. The only problem I can see is that there might be a problem with lubrication. So I don't really know that until I get into it. It's going to take me all day because I got to remove the axle. There's an axle shaft that comes in from each side, and normally on a regular drive axle, it's basically just popping this out, pulling it out, and there you go. That's it. On this, because it's 4-wheel drive and it turns, there's more to it than that. But for the most part, it shouldn't really be too hard. It's just mainly going to be that thing's going to be really heavy. And it would be a lot easier to do this while it was not under the vehicle, which I could do. I could take the U-bolts out and just take this thing out of here, but I don't know. So I don't have a 4 7/8 axle nut socket. And it's Sunday, so Fleet Pride isn't open. They have one in stock, but it's, 2 hours worth of driving for me to do that. So here's how I calculate it. Forget about the money. It's only $60, that's not that much. But 2 hours worth of driving, I am absolutely sure that I can make something that would work for a quarter of that time. And free too, if you want to consider that too. So I have this repurposed 1.25" socket, 3/4 drive, and you can see I've already done something. I don't remember what it was, but we're going to use this because I've got like 3 others of them. That should do it. Hopefully. Very hopeful. I like that. I have no idea how many foot-pounds that is. It might not be a lot. Or it might be a lot. I don't know. Oh, look at that. And that's all it took. Look at that. Not bad for a half an hour and $0. Probably should have marked it before I took it out, but I kind of got excited. Okay, so now this should just come out of here. That's not what I wanted. I drained all the oil out. I don't know why there's so much oil. That was stupid. Kind of an afterthought now, but I guess some of it going now. There we go. Now, if I had went to go buy that socket, I would still be on the road right now. Okay, so all that work to get to the main work, which is now going to be this. Unfortunately, I am having more and more doubts as I'm going on because I'm studying the bolt pattern on here. And I'm realizing that to turn this 180 degrees, it looks like the bolt patterns are going to be off. But I guess there's only one way to find out, and it's much easier to do it out here than to do it underneath the truck. That is definitely not going to work. That was a lot of work to find that out too. I mean, all this stuff needed to happen anyways for me to change the ratio, because I got to change the ring and pinion in there anyways. But I wasn't really planning on doing it now. I don't have the parts now. Maybe I should get the parts. That's definitely not going to work. So basically that was my last ditch effort before needing to get that transfer case. I really did not want to get a new transfer case, but at this point, I know that there's really no other option other than getting a new axle. All right, so I just picked up this differential here. This is a 4:10 ratio, and it should fit in here. I only paid $500 for this, plus like $200 in shipping. But this should go right inside of this housing here, and I shouldn't have to do anything to it. It's a good working unit, and this changes it from a 6.14 ratio to a 4:10. So it's quite a big jump. And this is not exactly meant for this front drive, but I got doing a lot of research, and apparently for this axle, it uses an RS 15-120 differential. And there is slight differences between that one and that one, but I think it should be fine. One thing that I noticed is that there's no thrust screw, but again, I think it's fine. This is a self-contained unit, and everything that's in it is meant to work with itself. So if there's no thrust screw, it's probably not quite as good as that one, but it's also never going to be engaged. It's always going to be coasting, so I don't really see that that would matter because there's never going to be any thrust on it. Let's pull this one back out of here. The bolts are still loose. Pull this one back out, clean it up good, and put this one in there. And it's kind of an experiment because I don't know for sure if it's going to work, and nobody has been able to tell me if it's going to work, but we're going to find out. For those of you that don't know exactly what's going on right now, I should have explained it better. This is not going to fix the problem of the axle spinning backwards. This is only going to be helping my next step, which is going to be to re-gear this axle. So originally, just to get the ring and pinion to re-gear this from a 6.14 to a 4.56, which is what I was originally going to go with, it was $2,200 for the ring and pinion, and then I had to have a shop put it in because I've never done that before, so that was another $2,000 to $3,000. So we're looking at $4,000 to $5,000 altogether to re-gear this. So if this works, I'm gonna save thousands of dollars. I'm gonna have $700 into it versus $4,000 to $5,000. So that's a lot of money to save. And if it doesn't work, it's also not a whole lot of money to lose either. Except for the fact that at that point, I do have to pay the $4,000 to $5,000. Which at that point, I might just try to tackle it myself. All you really need is a dial indicator and to read the manual. But putting a new ring and pinion in, it's probably not a great idea to do that without putting all new bearings. And you know, it just turns into a big project. So if I can just put this diff in here and it works, then that's great. That will save me a lot of time and money, and that will make me feel better about the project moving forward, since I know that I just lost $3,000 to $4,000 on the transfer case, plus having to redo the drive shaft. There's another probably $1,000. You know, money just keeps dumping into this thing. If I can save some money, that'll definitely make me feel better about the whole project. And like I said, this differential is meant for a rear end. I'm turning it upside down to use for a front end, which as far as I can see should work, because I'm pretty sure that that's the carrier that's in this axle. But when I called Meritor, they could not give me an answer on that. They said it looks close, but we don't know for sure. And to get a whole differential that is the actual differential that you need for this, so far I've only found one of them, and it's $8,000, and that's used, and it wasn't even the right ratio. So getting a whole diff and putting it in there is not an option either. The only other option is a ring and pinion and putting it in. These things are a pain.
Many bolts. twisted and pushed at the same time, and it like did things. Lift, twist, push.
Yeah, you can see this is definitely really low right now.
Yeah. Kind of maybe like a bar or some kind of.
Maybe I must just let it go.
That should be it. Somewhere there.
Last night when I was trying to shove the axle in that differential that I had in there, the axle would not fit in there. So this part in here, which receives the axle, is called the side gear, and it's different than this one. They have a different side gear. So I was pretty bummed out about that, because basically last night, as far as I knew, that kind of ruined my whole plan. And so now I basically just bought that for the ring and pinion, and I still got to take that to a shop and switch the ring and pinion to this one. But I got doing some research, and I think that I can take that side gear out without messing with anything, without having to reset the tolerances and stuff. When you look up the part numbers, the side gear is the same part number for both of these, so I should be able to just take the one out of here and put it in there. The side gear is the part that actually engages in the axle and transfers the power from this differential into the axle. I'll show you when we get in there.
This guy.
Wait.
Okay.
Now it'll go. Why'd you do that?
Just gotta punch this.
Identify the two halves. I gotta punch this right here and right here. Okay. Okay, that's our part we need to change. This is the one we need. I'll put that on the other one. There we go.
down. Looks like it fits perfect.
So this is the bearing adjustment ring, and on this differential, this is the one I'm going to reuse. So I need to make sure that I mark that so I can put it back exactly where it was. On the other one I didn't do that, but I could easily measure it and figure it out with a dial indicator. But on this one I don't feel like doing that. So we're just going to mark this. Now we know that that cotter pin goes right in between there. This is flush, so we'll just put a little this right there. See, this little bearing retainer is threaded, so you can turn it right or left to tighten or loosen it, and that puts pressure on the bearing and gives it its backlash. There's this thrust washer here. So there's the size difference between the two of them. This is 1 3/4 and this is 2 inch. And they're both 38 spline. Just put that back in there. Back in there. That in there. Everything meshes good.
Just like here. further started there.
Okay, got that one.
Okay. Bracing. Okay.
Good.
Something and stuff. Okay, she's teetering. You got her?
Yep.
I'm gonna come around the other side. Let me see if I can put this jack in a spot where it'll help. Reading things.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Go off. That's fine.
That way you can kind of like rest it on that.
Yeah.
And help out. And then I can just go down.
Yep, just a little bit. Okay.
More.
Just a little bit. Good.
Should be able to just roll this jack back.
Yep. Roll back.
Better? More? Or down more? Or
No, roll back. Stick. So now you gotta just go down a little bit. Just a hair. Good.
Oh yeah, maybe.
There you go.
There you go.
Alright, I could use the impact on now.
Last time?
What do you say? 17th time is a charm?
I always say 47th time is a charm.
Hand me that bar. Actually, why don't you hand me that sledgehammer? That seems like a much better option.
Now you're against it.
There you go.
And
Yep.
nice.
That last little thunk as it goes in there is just like the most satisfying sound ever.
It is. There you go. That's it. All right, gotta go.
There we go.
Hallelujah. Pour some champagne, please.
I told you that strap would work.
While you're doing that, I'm going to take this off and clean up this sealant stuff.
There we go.
That was it. That's in there.
Next!
Lunch. Really? It's 1:16. What? 1:16. Ow, my fingers. Where did you come from? Where did you go? And stuff and things and stuff. stopping point.
People have seen us click into place this axle a million times, but it's still satisfying. I don't know if it is to them or not, but it is to me.
Many times we be satisfying as the last time.
Wow.
Is it the last time?
We always think it's the last time.
It's never the last time. Yeah.
The official ride height reveal.
Hello. Factory ride height. New factory.
4 inches above factory.
Not too bad, actually.
No, it's pretty bad. Alright guys, well, I know it doesn't look like it, but we did get a lot done in this video. This is 2 weeks in the making for this video, but like I said, the first week I spent a lot of time not even doing anything because of that whole issue with the transfer case. So really, out of actual work that was done, it's probably only a solid week. That's kind of why I wanted to end the video here, because as of right now, it looks like that axle is re-geared and ready for use. And it seems like if I move on to something big, there could be a potential for another big problem. So I kind of want to end this on a good note. At this point, the next major hurdle in this project is going to be getting this pitman arm off. Hopefully the other pitman arm that I got for it fits it, and hopefully that whole thing just works out in general, because that's one of those unknown things. And then moving forward from there, I need to get a rear end for this. I'm gonna get a whole cutoff with air ride, and it could be from a Freightliner, Mack, Peterbilt, Kenworth, whatever. Doesn't really matter. I mean, I would like for it to be for an international, but it really doesn't matter when it comes down to it. They all use the same axles. It's just the different suspension components that would be different, but nothing I have here is gonna work for that, so I have to get the whole thing with the mounts and everything. But that's why you get a cutoff, because when a truck becomes junk, basically they just cut the frame here and just sell the whole thing. That way the frame, the hangers, the springs, everything is included with it. And there's a lot of them on Marketplace, but I haven't found one with the right ratio. At this point, I've kind of given up on that. I think I'm gonna have to re-gear it no matter what it is. But one thing I was looking for is something that's decent, not rusted to crap. Even though I do have a sandblaster, I don't want it to be like pitted out. And also, I was trying not to find one from a tandem, because it just seems like a lot more work. It'd be nice to get one off of a single axle truck. It just seems like a lot less work to get it going. And I really wanted to run super singles on this truck, but New York State has this stupid rule where you can't. Let me know if you guys know the law on that, because I've seen many commercial military trucks that have super singles in the back, and they run around with New York plates on them, So I'm wondering how that works. I'm not gonna register this. This truck is not gonna be a commercial truck. I know it's gonna look like one, especially with a flatbed on the back, but it's not gonna be a commercial truck. I'm not gonna use this for any business purposes whatsoever. So maybe I can get away with super singles. To be honest with you, there's no reason why I couldn't get away with keeping this truck at a 33,000 GVW and not needing a CDL for it. That would be nice. I mean, I have a CDL, but I'm more thinking of like other people driving it. And I'm also thinking about driving past weight stations and stuff. There's no reason to pull this into a weigh station if it's considered more of an RV, a recreational vehicle. Now, this is not really an RV, but it's for recreational purposes, and it's for privately towing my own stuff. This will not be a motor carrier carrying anything other than stuff for me. So, as far as I'm concerned, this is not a commercial vehicle. And I guess we'll find that out along the way, but man, I would really like to run super singles on the back. But that's not going to change anything to do with the rear end. I'm still going to get the same thing as I was before, even if I can run super singles. It's just something to look forward to in the future if I can get super singles. Let me know if you guys have a cutoff and you're in the Northeast region, a single axle cutoff, preferably an international, but could be anything. I'm looking for a 410 or a 411 ratio, but at the same time, it's not that much money to re-gear it. Just like the front end, I could probably buy a differential for $500 and put that in. And the differential for the front end is a lot less popular because that's for a 15,000 pound axle. And on the back of these kind of trucks, it's not typical to find a 15,000 pound axle. Although if you had something around 23,000 to 26,000 GVW, I guess a 15,000 axle would be about right for it. So maybe they are kind of popular, but it seems like something like this, which is a 21,000 pound rear end, would be more typical. Because this truck was set up with a 21,000 pound rear end and a 12,000 pound front end, which equals the 33,000 GVW. But I am looking forward to getting that cut off, taking this off, moving everything forward, putting the cutoff on here, not the frame, but everything else. And then that way we can get the axle figured out. The other thing I need to do is get that transfer case. That's an entire day driving to get that, or I can pay like $700 more and get it shipped. But it seems like for $700, that's a day with the family going out and checking out museums and amusement parks and stuff and getting that along the way. Could stop at Hershey Park. Maybe in the next video we can touch on getting the interior done. Although less important, it's still something that needs to be done. Who knows? If things go right, maybe we can even start the engine by the next video. That would be really nice. I'd really like to get this situated. The wires and the hoses and stuff. We won't be able to drive it, I'm sure, but just being able to start the engine would be really nice. So I guess that'll do it for this video, guys, and I will catch you on the next one.